Welcome to Bottle Rocket with Alena Sycheva, your top hockey podcast. I'm joined today by Jerry Hack, former goalie and author of Memoir of the Hockey Nobody, and the legendary Stan Fischler, an Emmy Award winner, Lester Patrick Award honoree, and Hockey Hall of Famer. Let's get into it. Yes, let's get started. I'm excited. First of all, I want to ask you, how did you fall in love with the game and what pulled you in for good?
My father, in 1939, when I was 7, promised me that he would satisfy what every kid wanted in those days, to see the movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. My dad said he's going to take me to the Globe Theater on a Sunday afternoon, and I was all excited. And when we got off the subway, 3 blocks from the theater, this was a Sunday afternoon. It was very sunny when we left. We didn't have any thoughts about rain or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, when we got out of the subway at 50th and 8th, it was a downpour, and he didn't have an umbrella. We were right next to Madison Square Garden. And he said to me, "I'm not going to take you to see Snow White because we can't get there. It's raining." And I started to cry. So he yanked me into the garden, and there happened to be a hockey game, which I didn't know what the hell hockey was. But I knew I was furious with my dad, and I immediately saw that he was rooting for this one particular team, the Rovers. And what happened was that I had to get even with him. So if he was rooting for the Rovers, I rooted against him. They were playing Washington. And Washington had a guy with blonde hair who I identified immediately with my radio hero, the Lone Ranger. Name is Normie Burns, by the way. And the whole deal was that since I was there and since I was so furious, the only thing I could do was root against my father's team. And Washington wound up winning the game. My hero, the Lone Ranger on Washington, scored 3 goals, a hat trick. And it was great. Now, the next day, I go to school, PS 54. Mrs. Gould had a thing every Monday. I had to do a show and tell. So she called on me, and I did the goalie because I was fascinated with this guy with the pads and everything. And I did a show and tell. She gave me an A. And I said, "This hockey ain't too bad." And I went home and I said to my father, "Let's go next Sunday." And we went next Sunday. And that game was against Baltimore Orioles. And they had the most beautiful uniforms, Oriole colors, and I never stopped going after that. So I blame Snow White. By the way, he did take me to see Snow White the following Saturday, so all bets were off. It was good. I said, "Let's go to the hockey game," and that's how it started.
I bet hockey was better than Snow White.
I did good by me.
Who was your hockey idol growing up, and would you say you modeled your style, your hockey brain after anyone in particular?
When I was 10, my parents gave me a scrapbook with a 3-dimensional Indian head, and a little radio, a Philco radio. And it happened to be a Sunday night. It was 1942 in March. And I'm fooling around on the dial, and WOR was 710, and WJZ was 770. They were both New York stations. But in between, I'm listening to this guy. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about until I really tuned in. And he was doing the Maple Leafs Red Wings, 42, great, maybe the greatest playoff of all time. Leafs were down 3-0 against Detroit, and they won the last 4 games. But I'm listening to Foster Hewitt, who I didn't know who Foster Hewitt was, and I just knew he was just fantastic, excitement. And also, there were crazy nicknames on Toronto. I never heard nicknames like this. I had 2 guys on defense. One guy was Buckle McDonald, and the other guy was Bingo Campman. And then they had a guy named Sweeney Shriner. Who ever heard of a Sweeney before? Dave Shriner was the real name. Then they had a guy, Walter Broden. His name was Turk. Now, how the hell you beat a nickname collection? You got a Turk, you got a Bingo, you got a Bucko, you got a Sweeney. And in Brooklyn, never in my life did I ever hear the name Lorne. What's the kind of name is Lorne? And they had a guy named Lorne Carr. So I was fascinated. I was taken in. But Foster Hewitt was one who really made me an NHL crazy hockey fan, because my father never let me go to the games at night. The Ranger games started at 8:30, but the Sunday afternoon doubleheaders at the Garden with the Ranger farm team, it was great hockey. I didn't see a live game at the Garden, an NHL game, until I was 10. And that was Rangers Blackhawks. That was in 42. But I really didn't get serious until I was able to go alone. And that was really the start of the 46-47 season. By that time, I was the craziest Maple Leaf fan in North America. I would defy anybody to be crazier than me. Who?
How old were you when you decided that you were going to make writing about hockey your profession?
I can tell you exactly. When I started to go to the Sunday afternoon games, I found that I was getting very excited about it. They had a lot of white space where they had the lineups. And I came back from the game one day and I decided to write a thing about it. And of course, I always rooted for the visiting team. My team won. It was a great game. And when the Rovers won, it was because of the referees, as it always is, right? So I started writing, and then in the New York Times, I would say it was about 1944, around then, they had an article about hockey. I still have the articles by Joan in the magazine. And for some reason, I wrote back to them to explain why hockey was so great. Not the article said so, but I had and they printed my. I was a little pisher then. What the hell was I, 10 or whatever? And so that really inspired me. I mean, that they ran my letter, and of course, as I got well, I owe it all to my mom. My mom was a terrific letter writer. I have all her letters. She wrote to everybody in the family and cousins, whatever. So I got it all from my mom. Well, my father wrote also, but it was my mom. And by the time I got into college, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. At Brooklyn College did not have a hockey team, but we had a soccer team, and I wound up writing about soccer. And of course, by that time, I was, crazy Leaf fan, and I was just looking for a break. I finally got the break. So that's what happened.
That's amazing.
I'll say one thing. The break was a product of what I learned from my father. My father taught me how to hustle, work harder, run harder. And what happened was I wanted to get into hockey. I needed an entree. And two things happened. In 1950, the Rangers started their own fan club, and you could go to the fan club meetings and meet players. And myself and another two guys started a fan club paper called the Rangers Review. And the PR department was very open then. And they let me, my buddy Freddie, and another guy, Jerry Weiss, they let us interview players. So we were doing stories. And because we were doing stories, we had a kind of an entree. And one day I went up and I asked the guy who was the business manager of the Rangers, Tommy Lockhart, who ran the Eastern League. I said, Tommy, would you let me write a weekly newsletter for the Eastern League? He said, sure, why not? So now I'm up at the Garden every Friday handing in my story. It was a great thing. So anyhow, Tommy Lockhart gave me that break, and I was up at the Garden all the time. I was there with the fan club, and the guy who was running publicity for the Rangers was Herbie Gorin, and he saw my face around a long time, many times. And one day, this was in the late summer of 54, he called me up and he said to me, how would you like to go to work with the Rangers? Of course, I thought it was in some Toys R Us imitation phone. I couldn't believe it. And then after I got over my lockjaw, he said, do you want to come work? Yeah, I said, yes, Mr. Gore. And he says, well, I'm going to see if I can get you listed, whether we can pay you, and I'll know something tomorrow. So for 24 hours, I didn't sleep, waiting to get from his call. And then the next day, he called me up. He says, you got the job. You're coming in on Monday, and you're getting $50 a week, and you're going to be my assistant. And that's really that was the progression. It came from the love of the game, came from seeing the Rovers, came to getting Tommy Lockhart to let me do the newsletter and them seeing me around. So I have to say that I hustled my way to a point where they saw me enough and that Herbie decided that I could help him. In order to do that, I had to give up my allegiance to the Maple Leafs, which I did anyhow, because once my hero Bill Barilko disappeared after he scored the cup-winning goal in '51, and can you imagine this? One of the most exciting hockey players of all time. He would have been a Hall of Famer the way he progressing. He disappears, and the Leafs replace this guy with a teacher, Bolton. Who can root for a Leafs after Bill Baruch was replaced by a damn teacher? It's ridiculous. So I segued to the Rangers because they had the fan club and you could get close to the players. So that's what happened.
So you've been both Toronto and New York fans, and you've written so much about both of them. Who do you think, in your opinion, needs up more right now, Leafs fans or Rangers fans?
I'm writing and I'm sending it to you and I'm sending it to my friend T-Bay. I don't know whether you're getting it. I'm now doing a range of pieces for the Hockey News. I won't kid around with you guys. My allegiance in the NHL, unequivocally, as a fan, I'm not talking about a journalist, I'm talking about a fan, because we're all fans at heart. And I'm a fan of the Islanders, period. Okay? I did Islander games on television from '75 until I retired. I was doing the games through the toughest times to when we made the playoffs in '75. I just co-authored 2 years ago a huge 50th anniversary Islanders history. I've written a lot about them. So I'm not going to kid you. I'm an Islander fan. I'm also an anti-Tavares fan because that goes hand in glove. Why are you laughing? She thinks Tavares is a joke for that.
Well, if I could just interject for 1 second and tell Alena that the New York Islanders named their press box after Stan. It's now the Stan Fischler press box, right?
My former partner, but still good friend, David Kolb, he engineered this whole thing. I did not know it was happening. And it's probably the greatest thing of its kind that was ever done for me in terms of my hockey career. There's no question about that. And this year, I donated 100 books to the press room. So there's a hockey library there, not my books, but books from my hockey library. So without a question, the Rangers are responsible for my career. If Herbie Goran didn't hire me to be the publicist, but where the hell would I be? I don't know. So it's a three-way street. The Rangers started my career. I'm eternally indebted to them and the late Herbie Goran, who hired me. I'm indebted to the Islanders, and I also have done the Devils. I did the Cup when they won the Cup the first time in '95, in 2000, in 2003, with Lou Lamoriello all through those years. So fair is fair. I got it divided three ways, right? But the bottom line, why kid around, is the bottom line is the Islanders. Okay.
Okay. Let's fast forward to today's league. Who is the dark horse this season? What do you think? A team that might blindside everyone and go deep.
You know, when I found out today that Barkov is going to be out for the season, I just wrote a piece and I said that all bets are off now. And I explained how the Rangers could win the Cup, okay? And the way I figured it is this. The odds of a guy like Barkov running into a teammate like Nico like that, how could that possibly happen? Like on the first day of practice, the guy is going to run into a teammate and he's going to be out for the season? If you went to Vegas and you said this thing was going to happen, what are the odds are going to happen? Okay. So let's say, for the sake of arguments, the odds were 100 to 1 or 200 to 1 against, right? So the odds for the Rangers, according to the Hockey News yearbook, winning the cup were 23 to 1 against, right? Before this happened. Now it's happened. So I take the odds down to 23 to 1 down to 15 to 1, right? We don't care about the Maple Leafs because they never win the cup. So it doesn't matter. Right? I mean, let's honest. I'm being honest. They never win the cup. What, 1967? It's like crazy. So now it's 15 to 1 for the Rangers. And the next thing is the unseen hand. You know what the unseen hand is? The unseen hand was invented by Dick Irvin when he was coaching the Montreal Canadiens when they were winning all the cups with the Rocket before the riot. The unseen hand in hockey is something happening that's not supposed to happen. And my theory is that this is the unseen hand for a team like the Rangers because it opens. Who's so strong now? Now that Florida is sort of out of the question.
Plus
Vegas has picked the Stanley Cup, written by the Hockey News, but they get it wrong all the time. Last year, they said it was going to be Dallas. So I'm saying that the unseen hand is working hand and glove like this with history. And this is the 100th anniversary of the Rangers this season.
Oh, the unseen hand.
When you do this thing in June, you're going to congratulate me.
The unseen hand is going to slap the Maple Leafs upside the head. So. You're sending us your ratings and stuff, and you mentioned the Rangers' fourth line, Rempe, and two other guys that are like 6'5" beasts, and you came up with a name for the line. But when I was a kid, we used to watch this show called The Addams Family, and they had a butler named Lurch, and he was like 7 feet tall, and he had a really gravelly voice, and so I think you should nickname him the Lurch line.
Well, you think it should be, and I have mine. What really matters, Teabag, really matters, Alena, is that this is part of the Renaissance. Now, last year, they had two guys. One guy was 6'7", and of course, Matt Rempe being now they're calling Matt Rempe 6'9". By next year, he'll be 7'10", the way they're looking at it. Okay, let's say the guy is 6'9". Last year, Peter Laviolette, and I wrote this many times. I said, you got to use this guy smartly. Put him in front of the net on the power play. You got a monster. The goalie, have to get an axe or machete to chop him down. See the puck, but he didn't do it. He was not smart. Now, so far, the new coaches, they had a game the other day, and they had Matt Rempe standing in front of the goalie, and they got a couple of goals. So that fourth line could be dangerous. Now, the other thing about Rempe that's very interesting is that he was smart enough to go to Adam Oates, Hall of Famer. Adam Oates has a side business where he works with individual players. You got to pay this guy, of course, but he turns an average play into a better than average play. And Rempe has hired Adam Oates. So what I'm seeing is a good fourth line. The big problem with the Rangers right now is defense, and we'll see what happens. Look, your team, I have to say, Alena, your team and my team are even. Our teams are undefeated now, right?
Leafs, yeah.
There is good as buddy.
As usual, it always comes down to goaltending, and I like Shesterkin better than Stolarz, although Stolarz is still progressing up the ladder.
You're gonna pay him $5 million. Just pay the man. We need him.
Yeah, for sure.
I differ with you, Teabag. I think Stolarz is going to have a terrific season. I think Stolarz could take the Leafs very, very far.
Yeah.
If they get some other things worked out for replacing Marner, They could go all the way, let's face it. But Shesterkin is the highest paid goalie in the league by his demand, and I think that's going to rebound against him. He's good. We'll see if he's very good. He was supposed to, the guy's getting the most money in the league of the goalies, therefore he should be able to put him into the playoffs, right? He couldn't even get him into the playoffs last season. So how good is this guy? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, he definitely took a step back last year, but I still really like the way he plays and his style, being a former goalie. And he reminds me a lot of Jonathan Quick when Jonathan Quick was winning those Stanley Cups. Like, his lateral movement is just off the charts, and his flexibility, the way he reads the game, I just admire him.
I want to put a question to both of you. Okay. Why automatically is Stolarz better than Shesterkin? You want the answer?
It's cheaper.
No. Stolarz is from New Jersey.
Oh.
He's got the Jersey bounce. I'm really keen on this guy.
He's got to stay healthy.
Everybody's got to stay healthy. Look
well,
at
if Tony Dell was flying in your head, then you most likely would stay healthy.
I'm going to tell you something, Alena. Let me tell you something. In Stolarz, I see the unseen hand. See? We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I love Stolarz and Wall.
And he's good too. Like, he's played some great games for the Leafs. I mean, there was one playoff game where he stopped over 50 shots and won them the game. Like, so I really like Wall too. Their goaltending tandem is one of the top in the league, and the only one I can think better would be New Jersey with Markstrom and drawing a blank now. But
you know what?
The game 7 with the backup goalie Wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what? If Wall is healthy, you with me? If Wall is healthy, then the Leafs will have wall-to-wall goaltending.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the question for both of you guys: do you think Panthers will make the playoffs this year, or with Matthew Tkachuk and now Barkov, do you think they have a chance?
What do you think, T-Bag?
I think absolutely, no doubt. Paul Maurice is a great coach, and he'll figure out a way to plug those gaps. And Florida has that attitude where, next man up, where they don't put a big deal on players out of the lineup and they put the next guy in. And what I like is that with their minor league team, they play the exact same style. So when they pull up a guy from the minors, like if they need to replace a bottom 6 guy, and they'll pull a bottom 6 guy out of the minor league team. If they need a top 6 guy, they'll pull a top 6 guy out of the farm team. And so they're not putting guys into unfamiliar roles, just next man up and plug and play,
Well, my point about Florida is not so much these injuries, but you take the whole thing, that how many games they've played, even before they won the cup, they went to the final.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with T-Bag. Paul Maurice is a phenomenal coach, but you can be phenomenal, but you can't make the guys energetic if they're going into another marathon. It's not a sprint. But I can't see them not making the playoffs.
Yeah, the question was, would they make the playoffs? And I say, without a doubt, they'll be in the top 8. Like, they won't miss the playoffs.
But they're not going to win the cup. They wouldn't win the cup no matter what. They won't win the cup because the official law is no team wins the 3 cups in a row anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It goes back to the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs were the first team in history to win 3 cups in a row, okay?
Right.
We don't want to read about another team that's not the Maple Leafs to win 3 cups in a row. Of course, and the Maple Leafs then won with Imlach. It was the second time to win 3 cups in a row. It was a miracle. Now, that was when it was a 6-team league. But it's so tough. I mean, when you think about what these guys have gone through, 4 rounds, and the pressure, the injuries, and you see all these guys who they cover up their injuries until it's over. I couldn't see them healthy winning the cup for that reason, but they're amazing. They're amazing.
Mhm.
Who's going to make the final and who is going to win the cup? What do you think? We'll go back then and see who was right.
Well, I already told you that
Rangers.
the unseen hand says the rain. If I didn't know about the unseen hand, I would say Carolina. I feel that they're due. They have a good coach, Brenda Moore, and they've added a lot of good guys. And I think they're due. I respect Vegas. There's no team I would disrespect, but in terms of being, and this is the last chance for Carolina, let's put it that way. I like Carolina, but it ain't going to be the Rangers. And out west, obviously Vegas, great team.
Mm. The only way I would discount Carolina is their goaltending. Freddie Anderson's getting pretty long in the tooth, and Kochetkov, I don't think, is a true number one guy. He plays some great games, but he's a very streaky guy. So I don't know. He could get on a streak, and it could happen. But yeah, I think goaltending is their Achilles heel. My dark horse would be New Jersey. I love the Hughes brothers, and I like the goaltending, and I think they've got enough offense to complement their defense. I think they'll be a tough out, no doubt about it.
I have to bow to you as a goaltender, Teabag.
Former goaltender.
The one thing that I had forgotten about is Carolina's goaltending. And that's a very good point. And you're a goalie, so you know more about that than I do. The problem with New Jersey is that their best forward, Jack Hughes, gets hurt all the time. And he's not a big guy, and he's not easy to nail, but, he's been nailed. And him playing a whole season is a huge gamble. But you never know. I don't think their goaltending is that good.
Yeah, we'll see. I was going to mention, when you mentioned having Rempe in front of the net on the power play, Boston used to do that with Chara. I know it was effective against the Canucks. He used to drive Luongo nuts.
Well, Chara was such a total player that it's almost insulting to stick a guy with his qualities in front of the net, except that one of his qualities was he was the best guy in the league to put in front of the net. So why not? But, it's so funny. I was mentioning to Alena the other day about how in 1917, the average player when the league started was something about 6'5'8" and about 160 pounds. And the arena size was 85 wide and 200 feet long. And it's still 85 wide and 200 feet long. But now you got guys who are averaging 6'1", 200 pounds. You wouldn't have anybody thinking back in the 1928, you wouldn't think of having guys standing in front of a goalie. It would be absurd.
So looking at the game back then and now, when you started covering, what's the biggest shift in hockey culture that you've noticed? And what do you think? Is it better or worse now?
Well, the biggest change by far is the money. I was covering when I was Ranger Fan Club. Okay, let's say 1950, the Rocket was getting more money than anybody else. And he was getting a staggering figure of $25,000 a year. If a Ranger was making 15 grand, he was the highest paid player. There were no unions. The general managers and the owners ran the thing. And guess what? These guys were happy as larks to be in the NHL. Of course, they wanted to make more money, but, if you gave the GM a hard time, he said, listen, you see, this is a one-way ticket to Pittsburgh. This was the AHL Pittsburgh. But this is a one-way ticket to Springfield. Go play for Eddie Shaw. You see what hockey Alcatraz is all about, playing in Springfield. So now the salary cap is going up and up. You get Schlemiel's getting 4-year contracts, and guys you can't believe are getting 8 years. It's unheard of, unheard of. And when you compare that, and of course, the other thing, as I mentioned before, going from small players being able to survive and thrive, and now you get a guy who they're bragging about the fact that Rempe is 6'8" or 6'9". You're bragging about that? What kind of crazy stuff is that? But you know what? The whole thing comes down to whether the fans are going for it. The NHL has never done better. If you want to get into the league now, you got to be a billionaire 2 times over, and the ratings are high. So it's entertainment. And if the fans are coming out, that's all that matters. They're paying the big bucks, and that's it. It's a whole different world. And it changes all the time. And the NHL is adjusted to the change. They do things they've never done before. Even going electronic. Under review. We never heard of the expression, a play is under review. What the hell is going on? The referee made a decision, and now that's it. You take it or leave it. What is the solution to better officiating?
Well, I've been saying for years now that the game is too fast now. It's time to leave the linesmen on the ice, but take the referees off and put them in a box somewhere where they can oversee it, and maybe even call penalties retroactively, because stuff happens so fast, that the game is so quick that, I think just leave the linesman on the ice to drop the puck and call the offsides and the icings and break up the fights and whatnot. The game has gotten to a point now where having the referees on the ice is a detriment. No human can react that fast to what's happening directly. And I've refereed beer leagues. I know that stuff happens and guys are yelling at you, and you have 1 second to make a decision whether something's a penalty or not when you're a referee on the ice. If you wait any longer than that, people are yelling at late call. It goes to your reputation as a referee. So I'm of the opinion that it's at least time to experiment with taking the referees off the ice.
I think they have too much power, and some of them are biased.
I agree wholeheartedly with T-Bag. First of all, and I tried refereeing once because I wanted to see what it's like. I refereed a beer league game in New York, and when I took my skates off, I said, "This is ridiculous. We'll never do this again. This is impossible." Now, Jerry is right exactly right. The game is so fast, something happens, the guy has to process it in his head immediately, and it's impossible to really do it right. That's why they do replays and whatever. What it has made it 50% to 100% more difficult for the officials, because replay, nobody can beat up on a camera, but you can curse the referee. I will say this, that I give the league credit. It certainly has tried to make this system as good as possible, but it's impossible. When Capuano was coaching the Islanders, great guy, Jack Capuano, good coach too. And there was a game where it looked like the Islanders really had the refs were not good to the Islanders, let's put it that way. And after the game, I said to John, how do you feel about the referees? And he said something that I thought made a lot of sense. He said, Stan, my thing is, I hope that it evens out at the end. And I don't know what else to say. I agree. I don't know that this idea of having a referee or having the referee, who's going to break up the fights?
The linesman.
Well, you got 2 lines and you think they're going to be enough. Anyhow, maybe, I don't know. Certainly, it's something that has to be studied more and more because, okay, here's the story for you. This may be the answer. I'm having lunch with Gary Bettman. This is quite a while ago. And I was much more emotional about stuff than I am now. And I happen to be pissed off because of the game the night before. And I said to him, I said, Commissioner, you got to do something about the officiating. And he looked at me and he said, really? And then he reached into his jacket pocket and he pulled out an envelope and he pulled a letter out of the envelope and he began reading the letter. And the letter was very harsh. It was very nasty criticism of the officials. He said, Stan, guess who wrote the letter? And of course, the first guy who came to mind was the loudmouth like Brian Burke. Brian was a GM at that time. And it seemed to me that a guy, like Jack Adams of Detroit was always cursing the referees. But I said Brian Work because we were talking about the present, right? So he hands me the letter was written in 1932 by Les Patrick, a gentleman who was the manager of the Rangers. It was Lester Patrick writing the letter to NHL president Frank Calder. So the point was nothing has changed. It was bad in 32, it was bad in 42 and 52, and it's still bad. It's the way it is. It's too fast for the naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of noise lately about McDavid potentially leaving Edmonton. And two teams that always come up are the Leafs and the Rangers. If that's ever happened, what would you make of it?
You know what? If it was up to McDavid and his agent, I'd definitely say Toronto. But I think there are bigger forces at work here, and I firmly believe he'll end up in New York. The league would want him in New York. He would do in New York what Gretzky did in LA and just grow the game, and his endorsements would go off the charts. And yeah, I think there's no wrong answer here, but my gut feeling is that he'll end up in New York.
I believe that what McDavid has been doing is an insult to the city of Edmonton and to the Oilers as a whole. He's been playing verbal games, and he's a guy who's a very nice guy. But if you tease the Edmonton fans the way he has, being don't play games, we had that with John Tavares on the island. He played games. He teased us, and he teased the team, and he put the team in a position where instead of letting the Islanders make a trade and get something in return, the Islanders wound up with goonish, with nothing. And this is what this guy is doing. He's teasing. Now, it's his right to do whatever he wants to. He's not going to go to jail for this. And in terms of where he should go like Gretzky did to a place where hockey can be grown, like LA. I agree. I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to wind up in Toronto. I think he's going to wind up in New York. But the Rangers really don't need him. The Rangers sell out every single game. They sell. What the hell do they need? 2 years ago, they won the President's Trophy, for crying out loud. Do they need to put more people in seats? No, they don't. But do the Maple Leafs need this guy? You're a fan. What do they need him for? This guy has one of the best players in the league as a teammate and alignment, Leon Draisaitl. And with Leon, who may even be better all around as a player than McDavid, they still haven't been able to win a Stanley Cup. So you think he's just going to come to Toronto and the Leafs are going to have to strip their lineup to get this guy? And you think they're going to be better? Well, I'll tell you what, good luck to the team that gets this guy. And maybe he'll stay in Edmonton. There are a lot of sides to it, just like there are a lot of sides to the Mitch Marner business. You know, you can go both ways.
What do you think? Do you think the Leafs are better off without Marner, or is it gonna backfire hard?
Got better off because they haven't won the cup. They have to win the cup, just like the Rangers haven't won a cup since 1994. That's a long time. Toronto, it's 1967. That's another century. We're talking about the two richest teams in the league. The Leafs are the richest team in the league. The Rangers are the richest team in America.
That's a lot of pressure for them. Anyone who joins the team gets the pressure from the fans. High expectations.
You know, and I got to say something about pressure because I've had the opportunity to play against NHL players in summer league and tournaments. And the one thing I notice about them is they are absolutely hyper competitive. They do not want to lose, even in casual hockey. When I played against them, they were all out all the time. And so I don't think they feel that pressure. I think it comes from within. Their intestinal fortitude just drives them. And so I can't say it for every NHL player, but that's the one common denominator that I noticed when I played against Cliff Ronning and Matt Cook. And Matt Cook in a beer league game I played against, he laid out one of our centers. Like, you know, it's just like he got a pass across center and he was looking behind him, and I guess Matt Cook just couldn't resist and just laid him out. So this thing about pressure, I really don't agree with, because I think they are just driven in that direction. And I don't think it really matters to them, the outside forces.
I've got to add, just like Jerry said, the competitiveness never goes away. Two stories. There was a guy on one of the fantasy teams from Chicago. He was paying money to play against. And Chicago was playing Detroit, and this Schlemiel does something stupid to Gordie Howe. So when this guy came back to the Chicago bench, they said, "You shouldn't be doing that. What are you doing? What are you messing around with Gordie Howe?" Paid no attention to them. Second period, he did something else stupid to Gordie Howe, and they admonished this guy again. "What are you, crazy?" He did it the third time. You want to know something? Howe laid him out flat. Flat. Was unconscious for about 10 seconds. A little elbow, and that was the end of the guy. So here's the other story, talking about competitiveness. So my friend Ira Gitler was on the Detroit team, and they were playing the Leafs for the championship. And Detroit was leading by a goal, and it was going down to the last minutes of the game. Detroit's leading. Now, my friend Ira Gitler was a great guy, but he wasn't a very good hockey player. But it was time for him to get his turn. And Bill Gadsby, of course, was on Detroit, and he didn't want any two-bit Schlemiel playing defense. He wanted to protect the lead, right? But he had to do something. So when Ira came out, he said to him, "Ira, just get in the way." And of course, they won. But the other thing about this pressure, what the hell kind of pressure did Mitch Marner have? What kind of pressure? He played how many times? 3 or 4 times a week. He was on the ice for what? 20 minutes most, right? A few times a week. He's getting millions of dollars. He has the whole summer off. That's pressure. The guy's one of the luckiest guys in the world. He never should have complained.
He said in the interview he was getting death threats. That's why he went to Las Vegas. The
problem, my dear, is that he was spoiled rotten. He was not friendly with the media. At the end of the game, they ask you 4 or 5 questions. What's the big deal? The other day, somebody brought up Marner to Matthews, and Matthews says, "How many more times do I have to answer this question?" What is the big deal? The guy asks you a question about Marner. Do you have to have oxygen to live to answer the question? Answer the damn question and be nice, and that's it. What's the big deal? After the games, at 5 or 10 minutes with the media, that's the end of the earth. These guys realize how lucky they are.
Yeah, dealing with the media comes with the package. Some of the players don't realize is that the reporters aren't asking the questions because they want to know. They're asking the questions because the fans want to know. They are the conduit between the players and the fans. So when you look at it in those terms, you just kind of got to grin and bear it and have fun with it. I mean, I dealt with a little bit of media in my career, and I always enjoyed it. I thought it was great, even when they were critical of me.
If you got a final question or two, give it to me.
When is another book like this coming out?
That's it. My tales are broken at my pride and joy. I've got hockey in it. And anybody wants to read a fun book, go to Amazon. You could buy it. I think it's less than $20, maybe $20 in Canada. Give me a good hockey question.
What do you think of my Vancouver Canucks? What are their chances this year?
Well, I think their chances are good because they got rid of the troublemaker, JT Miller, and they start off fresh, a new coach, and they're going to make the playoffs. The key, as you know, is goaltending, and they got to have a healthy goalie.
Yeah, I think it's Demko's year. He's gone through some tribulations the last few years. He couldn't stay healthy, but I think they've got that behind him, and Kevin Lankinen is more than capable of putting up good numbers too. So they don't lose a whole lot with Lankinen, but Demko's just got that extra it, that some goalies have, like Patrick Waugh. Not that I'm comparing Demko to Waugh, but he had that it thing. So,
Waugh was as great as any goalie for his time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there was a couple of those years where he basically won the cup by himself. And so it still behooves me that the Canucks could have drafted him. They took somebody else like 2 picks before, and the Patrick Waugh went 2 picks later. I think it was 3rd round or something. So yeah, and they could have had Martin Brodeur. You drive yourself crazy thinking of all the players that you could have had. Yeah, right. Anyway, maybe this year, maybe the unseen hand is going to come in and push them in over the top. So yeah, and beat the Rangers in the final.
Well, it's been a pleasure, guys. That's been so much fun. Thank you so much.
I'm waving goodbye.
See you, Stan.
Hey, kiddo.
Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next week.
Bye.